Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and recently I've been playing around with a build that I normally wouldn't go anywhere near. I'm generally a very aim-down sight focused player who values accuracy and being versatile. I tend to prioritize recoil reducing specializations over almost everything else, and this applies to pretty much everything I use. But then one day I had an idea I ended up being unable to ignore, and it resulted in this video, and a real kill feed filling build. And before I get into the full breakdown of the build in question today, let me just highlight a sweet unexpected bonus of using this setup. All I'm going to say is, can you imagine being this guy I'm about to show you? Imagine what he sees, what he hears, what he's thinking. Just try to imagine it.
Go for the tank.
I mean, that poor dude never stood a chance. Plus, I got a real laugh out of it in the moment. He was a victim of the build I was using and the core map design of BF5, two things that go hand in hand today. So what are the key principles of this build? Well, you select support, you throw on the Lewis gun, ammo pouches for quick and easy resupplying, the revolver for a deadly close quarters backup, combine that with the extended magazine specialization for the Lewis gun, and the machine gunner combat role, and well, if you're anything like me, you're about to have some serious fun. Oh, and the mid-range scope is my sight of choice for this build, as it's great for checking areas and a lot of the mid-range fights you have in BF5, but you should really just go with your own preference where that's concerned. So the obvious attention-grabbing aspect of this build is the huge drum magazine slapped onto the top of the Lewis gun. This takes the Lewis's ammo capacity from 47 rounds to 97 rounds. That's an increase of 50. It more than doubles the original ammo capacity. And actually, even without the extended magazine specialization, the Lewis gun already had the largest ammo capacity of any LMG currently in Battlefield 5. But with that specialization on, it completely dwarfs the others. It's out in first place by a long way. The closest any LMG comes to the 97 rounds of the extended mag Lewis gun is the Bren, with 30. Less than a third of the size. In fact, you have to go for an MMG to find anything with a larger ammo capacity in Battlefield 5, and only one of those is larger without a specialization to boost ammo capacity, that being the 150 rounds of the M1922 MG. Obviously, with mag increasing specs on the MMGs, they beat the Lewis gun, but it's still an undeniably impressive feat, especially considering you can aim down sight with the Lewis for far more versatility than with the MMGs, which can't ADS. And it's still only 3 rounds behind the max capacity of some of the MMGs, which is pretty crazy really. And this provides you with opportunities that you simply don't have with the vast majority of other weapons in the game. Think about it. The traditional LMG experience of having a ton of ammo to mow enemies down or put out some serious suppression really doesn't exist in Battlefield 5 aside from the Lewis gun, probably because DICE didn't want to make the MMGs a near pointless option in some regards. And really, there aren't that many large ammo capacity options in the game full stop, which really gives the Lewis gun with extended mag a genuine standout selling point. But what about the combat role I mentioned? Well, it's machine gunner, and the reason we're using this is because you take less suppression yourself, deal more suppression to others, and fully suppressed enemies are spotted. With all of that ammo at your disposal, with the capability to lay down fire for an extremely long amount of time, why wouldn't you take spotting the enemy as a trait? It makes absolutely perfect sense, especially when you consider that the alternative combat role, engineer, is focused around repairing and building faster, plus static weapons around the map taking longer to overheat. Those traits really don't help us to improve anything that this build is focused upon. Plus, consider the benefit for your team. This is a game with what the majority of players think is, let's call it, challenging visibility, and also has a pretty camper heavy meta. But now you have the power to fire for a super long time and spot enemies that you're firing near. You can light up that minimap with your suppressive fire. This not only helps you and those around you, but it's also a solid way to keep increasing your points total. Not to mention, it just helps you to track your targets BF1 style. Follow the red marker as you're firing at them, and eventually you'll take them down. Now combine everything I've said so far together, and you've got some real synergy going on. This is starting to look like a damn powerful setup for the right kind of player. And I'll give you a theoretical example of its power. So you know those times you come up behind a group of enemies, your eyes light up, but you inevitably run out of ammo before you can finish them all off. Well, not with this build. Not with the Big Mag Lewis gun. And you're likely suppressing the enemies if they're bunched up, making it even more obvious who you need to kill. You're just shooting at red markers at this point, and you're for sure going to have enough rounds to finish the job. This also ties in with what what are again pretty quiet footsteps now, so you genuinely can find yourself in these multi-kill situations. Your kill feed is just asking to be filled. But when you do get low on ammo, the pouches come in clutch. The main priority is to get more rounds into your Lewis gun and continue to be a real nuisance for the enemy team. Although you should absolutely also be resupplying your teammates as well. And the pouches are the optimal choice for fulfilling both of those requirements. A lot of people don't notice or use the crates if you put them down anyway. And with the aggressive and mobile nature of this build, we don't want to be hanging around putting crates down and then trying to use them ourselves. We want to quickly use a pouch to get more rounds and get back into the action. And you can throw pouches to those around you while you're on your way. It's great synergy again. So you don't need to worry about ammo at all. A rare concept in Battlefield 5, as attrition is such a prevalent element. So you can spray away to your heart's content. In fact, I encourage it. Spray at high traffic areas to spot enemies, and also just hold that trigger down to try to pick up a difficult kill sometimes. This is something you absolutely can't do with most other builds. I'll show you again here. This enemy is proving to be elusive, but I can just keep firing at him, shooting through the walls, tracking him with my suppression until he eventually ends up somewhere where I can fill him with rounds. Trust me, enemies aren't used to dealing with this concept. The only other time they really come across anything like this is against MMG users, and they can't be anything like as versatile or mobile as you can with this setup. You can constantly move around the map, getting up close or taking people down with relative ease at mid-range. And you do still have a bipod if you want to take a crack at anyone from long range. I wouldn't want to come up against myself using this. It's not that easy a thing to counter in all honesty. But I should probably mention a very key stat in case some of you aren't familiar with the Lewis gun. What exactly are we looking at when it comes to spewing those rounds out? Well, it fires at 540 RPM, so it's not competing with the truly fast TTK options, but it also isn't bad, kinda middle of the road, allowing you to get the kill if you shoot first against the majority of weapons. Not all, but the majority. So you need to be on your toes and ready to hit the target, which means this is another one of those times where I say it's not for everyone, at least not if you want to play aggressively. It requires the right skill set, but you don't have to use it in quite such a run and gun fashion if you don't wish. It's still got all of the other benefits I've mentioned, such as for suppression, a great mid-range support role, etc, etc. But there is another reason why this isn't an easy option to use, especially not on console, which is where I use it, and I know a lot of my viewers are console players. And this reason is because using extended magazine, which ties the whole build together, means you don't get ported barrel or barrel bedding, meaning you don't get less horizontal recoil or improved accuracy from stationary ADS fire. So you need to be good at controlling recoil, and I mean good. This will kick around. As I just alluded to, this is harder to manage with a controller, so it may take some getting used to, and I guess also possibly with a mouse. You may need to practice, but I genuinely think it's worth it, not just to utilize this awesome build, but because getting better at controlling recoil literally makes you better at the whole game. It actually can help to make you better at FPS games in general. The basic principle is, if you can hit more shots, you're going to be a better and more lethal player. But there is also an upside to being locked to the specialization side that has extended magazine, because slings and swivels has a mild unexpected benefit of allowing you to shoot faster after sprinting, which is good for when you pull off a flank and want to drop some rounds quickly into some enemies you've found. It's also helpful for the run and gun playstyle that I enjoy with this build, and the necessity to get your shots in first against a fair few weapons. So this isn't a stable LMG, especially considering your specialization choices, which means close to mid-range is actually your most common aim for finding a target with this build, which again brings slings and swivels into play fairly often, meaning it's not a wasted specialization at all. I'll quickly show you here the specialization screen just to make it very clear. Quick aim at the top for better close quarters run and gun reactions, slings and swivels and extended magazine in the middle for the reasons we've covered, and I go for recoil buffer at the bottom just so it isn't truly wild recoil. It's erratic enough without ported barrel on, in my opinion. Now if you wanted to, you could use this build in a much more passive manner where you'd select high velocity rounds at the top and improve bipod at the bottom. This would create a super accurate stationary gun that you can also move around with if you so wish. And so that's the Big Drum Mag Lewis gun build. It's great for everything I've covered today, but does require some user know-how and ability. I do recommend also being ready to spray from the hip at close quarters when necessary, and the revolver backup option also comes in clutch for those panic situations. So what do you think? Have you tried this kind of build out before? Are you keen to give it a go now? And what's your go-to support weapon? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and join my Discord server in the description and my pinned comment. Here's the board of awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes and love them all deeply and often. If you want to join them on the board of awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. All support is absolutely appreciated. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.